So the next story here is going to be about Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton still being BFFs and still remaining in contact with each other, still, still basically, well, in this case, I guess, Elizabeth Warren still heeding the advice of Hillary Clinton. Elizabeth Warren trying to, essentially, I mean, she wants to get the voters, the Hillary Clinton voters. I mentioned this before. She's trying to get those Hillary Clinton voters from 2016, the Hillary diehards that are still pissed about Bernie Sanders supposedly screwing over Hillary Clinton, even though he campaigned for her, just because he had the gall and the unmitigated gall to criticize Hillary Clinton for legitimate reasons and challenge her in the primary. They want to get back at Bernie by pushing for somebody like Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. Like I said earlier, Kamala Harris is probably not looking too good. But they would love Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren to them is like that's a compromise choice, And even though at one point Elizabeth Warren was considered too far left, and I covered in past podcasts how Elizabeth Warren is coming off as much more palatable to CEOs, so the heads of multinational corporations, big banks, CEOs and stuff. So it's becoming a problem. But the fact that she is still in contact with Hillary Clinton and possibly still getting advice and tips and getting tips and advice and stuff from from Hillary Clinton, that's a problem. I mean, that's something that people should be really, really worried about, because this is somebody that lost to Donald Trump. This is somebody that obviously did not learn her lesson, because she keeps pushing for the same, keeps pushing for like the same, she's still pushing the same talking points about Russia and pushing for all that, bullshit, fear-mongering Russiagate shit, and talking about how, the election was stolen from her, and, we need to go and, talking about Bernie bros and stuff. I don't know, just a bunch of shit. It's so hard to keep track of all the ridiculous, accusations that Hillary Clinton has made against progressives and just kind of like anybody that doesn't bend at her will, essentially, And she obviously doesn't like to be I guess talked down to, if you want to put it that way. But she basically doesn't want to be challenged, and she loves the idea when politicians are kissing her ass, and that's what Elizabeth Warren is doing, and that's why it's a big issue. With all that said, I wanted to get into this article about how they are, keeping in contact and talking and, kind of maintaining that relationship, especially after Elizabeth Warren endorsed Hillary over Bernie Sanders. So essentially, at some point, you can definitely expect that that Elizabeth Warren is going to try and get Hillary's support, which is honestly, it's a horrible decision, considering the fact that Hillary Clinton is terribly unpopular. She lost to Donald Trump, regardless of how many more millions of votes she got. What was it, 3 million or however, almost 3 million votes that she got than Donald Trump. She's still terribly unliked throughout the country. And but let's get into this article here, and then we'll talk about it as we go along. So the title of this article is from NBCNews.com. The title is "Warren and Clinton Talk Behind the Scenes as 2020 Race Intensifies," and the article is written by Jonathan Allen. I think Jonathan Allen used to write for Politico before, so it's these kind of articles. When they're written by these guys, they usually have the same kind of tone, corporate tone to them. So let's check it out here. It says Elizabeth Warren's team doesn't want to talk about Hillary Clinton, but that doesn't mean the 2020 presidential candidate isn't talking with her party's 2016 nominee. The two women have kept a line of communication open since the Massachusetts senator decided to run for president, though only a conversation around the time of Warren's launch has been previously reported, according to several people familiar with their discussions who spoke to NBC on the condition of anonymity because of the political sensitivity of private interactions. It's hard, and then the next part says, it's hard to know exactly how many times they've reached out to each other or precisely what they've discussed, in part because neither camp wants to reveal much of anything about their interaction, and in part because they have each other's phone numbers, and there are many ways for two high-powered politicians to communicate that don't involve their staffs. So, in my opinion, I guarantee you they've talked much more than once. If I were to put a number on it, I would have to say at least, I think I'm trying to be too nice. I was going to say 5. I want to say at least 10 times. I'll be nice and say 5 to 10 times. That's the least I can say. At least 5 or 10 times. If it's more than that, yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. And that's only because, like I said, she wants to get the support of Hillary Clinton so that she can get her supporters. So she wants to get those Hillary diehards from 2016, and she knows that that's a big factor in, you know, obviously getting that neoliberal Democrat loyalist vote. So continuing on here, it says Clinton is a fraught subject for the Democratic contenders, perhaps for none so much as Warren, who in the shadow of Clinton's defeat is seeking to become the second woman to win the party's nod and the first woman elected president. As she seeks to blend her movement-based progressive campaign with the Democratic establishment long wary of her populist brand of politics, Warren has been maintaining and creating relationships with a wide array of Democratic establishment figures. And if the race for nomination goes long, as many Democrats now predict, Clinton could become pivotal as an ally, an adversary, or a neutral observer. I got to tell you, she's definitely not good as an ally for anybody. I mean, I even hope that Hillary Clinton doesn't support Bernie Sanders. If she supports Bernie Sanders, I'll be like, oh, god damn. I mean, I think honestly a lot of progressives might, maybe not progressive, not like, you know, like loyal Bernie supporters, but like people that are like even wary of Bernie Sanders are going to be like, what? You know, Hillary Clinton is supporting him? You know, I don't know if I want to, you know, maybe he buckled to some sort of pressure or something. You know, people are going to get paranoid, and understandably so they're going to get paranoid, and they're going to think that he gave into some sort of demand that she's asking for, because to be fair, Hillary Clinton and the DNC gave into a lot of demands that Bernie Sanders was pushing for when, you know, he was trying to get the Democratic platform in 2016 to include like more progressive policies and stuff, which was what Bernie was fighting for, especially among the DNC, and like kind of reforming the DNC's corrupt system. But since he was pushing for that, yeah, like I would totally see the fact that he pushed for that in 2016, that she, like, people would suspect that she pushed for that if she ended up endorsing Bernie. Now, if she doesn't endorse Bernie, if Bernie is the nominee, people will be like, oh, yeah, great, wonderful. You don't have to hear about Hillary Clinton anymore. And I guarantee you, Hillary Clinton campaigning for Bernie Sanders would be a terrible idea. That would be something that Bernie Sanders, I think, would even, honestly, I think he would probably deny. But I also fear that possibly his strategists and advisors would possibly tell him, like, no, let Hillary campaign for you. It's okay. No, Bernie needs to turn that shit down. I don't know if he's going to, but he definitely needs to. So continuing on here, it says, more immediately, Warren would no doubt like to win over support from Clinton voters, particularly women and women of color, as she battles Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, former Vice President Joe Biden, and the rest of a field that trails the top-tier what is this word? Triumvirate? Never heard of that word. Yeah, so, and I should note that the support that Elizabeth Warren has among just people of color, I don't know about women of color, but people of color is very, very low. I think she has maybe like 29% support from people of color. Now, because they are women, possibly the women of color support her more. I don't know. That's just my guess. If she got Hillary Clinton support, she would definitely, that support would go up big time. Now, I don't know if they would go up big time among people of color, but just women of color for sure it would. Because she had big support among women of color in 2016. And by the way, on top of that, I should note, Bernie Sanders has big support among people of color. He has, I believe, at least 65 to 70% support from people of color. I'm not sure what the number is for women of color. I think it might be in like the low 60s, but yeah, it's high. It's still high. So it's plenty more than a majority for sure. So, and obviously the media likes to ignore that. They act like that as if that's not the case, which is crazy, but unsurprising too. So continuing on here, it says, but Warren has made little effort to publicly highlight ties to Clinton, who is perceived by many on the left as too centrist and who was defeated in an election Clinton and her allies believe was heavily colored by President Donald Trump waging a misogynistic campaign. To the extent that Democratic primary voters feel a repeat scenario in 2020, and to the extent that she's competing with Sanders for the votes of progressives, there may be good reason for Warren to keep her distance from Clinton publicly. At the same time, people who know and like both women say there are more similarities between them than some of the partisans would like to admit. That's not a good thing. Each is a policy powerhouse with an uncommon command of details. Oh, come on. Hillary Clinton is a policy powerhouse with an uncommon command of details. Are you kidding me? I mean, okay, you can make that case about Elizabeth Warren. She's definitely very wonky. Hillary Clinton is not a policy powerhouse. That's absolutely absurd. Nobody fucking believes that. Come on. And it says, and possesses the ability to master new material quickly with a deep intellectual curiosity. Who the hell thinks that about Hillary Clinton? I mean, that's crazy. Just listen to her talk. A policy powerhouse and possesses the ability to master new material quickly. As if she's some sort of like intellectual sponge, as if she's like a policy sponge. She just takes everything in. Do they ever say that about Bernie Sanders, who's constantly talking about policy? No, they just say he was loud and rambling and angry. Anyway, it says like Clinton, Warren focused the early part of her campaign on developing a raft of policy proposals and rolling them out. No, that's not true. That's not true for Hillary Clinton. More important, an explicit or implicit blessing from Clinton could help Warren if she finds herself battling for delegates and superdelegates at a contested Democratic convention next summer. Hillary Clinton would absolutely have influence over a number of delegates to this convention, said Deb Kozakowski, the vice chair of the Massachusetts Democratic Party. Massachusetts, of course, is the home state of Elizabeth Warren. Though Warren harshly criticized Clinton's vote for a 2001 overhaul of bankruptcy laws, the two have developed a healthy respect for each other in recent years. When Clinton was developing policies for her own campaign in 2015, her aides kept in close contact with Warren to give her an opportunity to raise concerns before they were rolled out. That's actually pretty hard to believe, considering Hillary Clinton and her staffers are so hell-bent on thinking that they know everything, and that they're, like in this case, she's a policy powerhouse. I'd be surprised that they were taking any of Warren's ideas. If they were taking Warren's ideas that were more neoliberal and centrist, if anything. And if they did take any of her, faux aggressive or progressive policies, they ultimately didn't even commit to them anyway. Continuing on here, it says, Clinton has been impressed with Warren's campaign so far, according to a Democratic strategist who has spoken with her. She has applauded her about being serious and disciplined and loves that she is sticking to her guns, the strategist said, speaking on the condition of anonymity because Clinton's remarks were intended to remain private. Clinton has relationships with most, if not all, of the Democratic candidates, and she met with or spoke to many of them at the start of this campaign cycle. Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, sat down with Clinton in New York several months ago when his star was rising and he needed to clear the air following a report on his criticism of Clinton's campaign. So basically that's a translation for Pete Buttigieg had to go and kiss Clinton's ass, and he had to let her know that he totally respects her and loved what she did in her campaign in 2016 and agreed with everything that she did. And she is wonderful because she was the first woman to be nominated for president of the for the Democratic Party, or in general just president. And she is a great candidate, and she's a big influence for women, and blah 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 blah, and a bunch of bullshit. So yeah, that's not surprising. That's not surprising at all for anybody that can see that Pete Buttigieg is a total centrist, corporatist, shill, kiss ass, basically. And then the rest of the paragraph here says, but the contact with Warren appears to have been more than a courtesy call or a trip to the principal's office. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, principal's office. And then it says, with a progressive base behind her, Warren's political need is to make establishment Democrats comfortable with her candidacy. Clinton, whose politics arguably have been closer to Biden's over the course of her career, has deep credibility in those circles. Yeah, that's a very troubling paragraph right there, saying that not only do Warren's political need is to make establishment Democrats more comfortable, which is a oxymoron considering the so-called progressive base behind her. The progressive base is not behind Elizabeth Warren, definitely not as much as they are behind Bernie Sanders. That's what the mainstream media pretend. That's what the mainstream media tries to ignore, or kind of tries to pretend as if it's not the case as much. They like to pretend as if Elizabeth Warren has more progressive support than Bernie Sanders, because she's also willing to take the support of the establishment Democrats. So the people that they think are progressive, they are actually again, they're those grifting resistor types that call themselves progressive, but they're actually just centrist, essentially. So the mainstream media, being the idiots that they are, they think that these centrist idiots are actual progressives when they're not. So, and then they claim, the progressive base that's behind Warren. No, there's no progressive base that's behind Warren. And if it is, it's not as much as Bernie Sanders, for sure. You can take that to the bank. And then saying that Clinton's politics are arguably closer to Biden's is that's just even more. That just says even more about how terrible Joe Biden is, for sure. And then it says, but Clinton and Biden developed a rivalry when they worked in the Obama administration, as they both prepared for a 2016 campaign that Biden ultimately didn't enter. She also might take into consideration factors other than proximity on policy if she decides to back a candidate at some point. Kozłowski, who's the vice chair of the Massachusetts Democratic Party, Kozłowski, who has not endorsed a presidential candidate, said it would make sense for Clinton to be helpful to one of the women running if she can put her over the top. It would be counterproductive for the first woman nominee of the party to not be supportive of a woman who may go over that threshold, Kozłowski said. So, listen, when it comes to trying to garner the support of the corporate establishment, that's what Hillary Clinton's endorsement would do. It would not help. It would not help the progressive base. It would not help the people that are seeing Elizabeth Warren, worried about her not being progressive enough, and then seeing somebody like Hillary Clinton supporting her. I mean, progressives would flee that scene as fast as possible. They wouldn't want to have anything, and I'm speaking as a progressive who knows a lot of progressives and is in contact with a lot of them. They don't want to have Hillary Clinton involved in anything. And why do you think this whole stuff about Warren and Hillary Clinton being in contact is being kept under wraps? It's being kept behind closed doors because Warren knows that Hillary Clinton is not liked by progressives that are Bernie Sanders supporters, and to Warren's credit, she wants to get the support of Bernie supporters, but she wants to do it by co-opting Bernie's ideas, which is terrible. And it's very clear that she's trying to out Bernie by grifting off of his policies and pretending to support them, when in reality she doesn't. And then she just takes his policies and pretends that her ideas are better. Now she doesn't attack Bernie doesn't attack her. But she pretends that her policies are great and they're just like Bernie's, but hers somehow are going to be better because, I don't know, she's more pragmatic, and because she's liked by the establishment. Oh, I got the support of the establishment, and I got the support of the pragmatic establishment and the progressives. Okay, well, that's not going to help you, because look how that worked out for Hillary Clinton. So my fear is that Elizabeth Warren is going to pull a Hillary Clinton, just like she did in 2016. Not as bad as Hillary Clinton, who was just constantly shitting on progressives, whereas Elizabeth Warren seems to be much more kind of conciliatory to progressives, and kind of seems to be catering to progressives much more, which is nice. But at the end of the day, if you're not pushing for the policy the progressives want, then all of that, kissing the ass of progressives doesn't mean anything. And ultimately, it doesn't look like she is going to be pushing for any kind of progressive policies as much as she claims she does on the campaign trail and in the debates and whatever interview she gives. Elizabeth Warren is not somebody that is going to be the progressive firebrand that she pretended to be back, I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even when she first came into the Senate. So, and she's already left a bad taste in the mouth of progressives for not endorsing Bernie Sanders in 2016, which progressives feel that she should have done, leftists feel that she should have done when Bernie and Hillary Clinton were facing each other in the Massachusetts primary in 2016. People felt that she should have endorsed Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton, and that would have put Bernie over the top. Now, whether or not that would have happened, possibly. And by the way, the race was very, very close. Hillary Clinton ended up winning by like 1 or 2%. So it's not like it was a bad showing by Bernie. I don't know how many delegates that counted for. Probably wasn't too much, but either way, I think it would have probably made some sort of an impact. But ultimately, this is a matter of putting aside delegates and all that shit, and winning races or not. The point is that Elizabeth Warren is supposed to be a progressive. She kind of portrays herself as one and sells herself as one, but then she goes out there and kisses the ass of the establishment, goes and cozies up with the heads of CEOs of multinational corporations, such as Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, and she's trying to become more palatable to the heads of those big banks and the establishment. And that's something I covered I believe it was the last podcast. And she is doing that, and actually, well, I've covered in many podcasts, but that's one of the things that I brought up. Actually, one of the main things I did bring up in the last podcast was the fact that she declared in 2 separate interviews, one with TYT and one on MSNBC's All In with Chris Hayes. She declared that she is happily willing to take money from super PACs in the general election. So it does not believe in, quote, unilateral disarmament. So she is not against taking super PAC money in the general. So what does that mean? That means that she is willing to cater to progressives in the primary because she needs to get their votes. But then when it comes to the general election, she's going to stave off, ignore and kind of neglect what progressives say and the demands that they make, and be like, oh yeah, well I need to get all the money that is needed, and she says something along the lines of, we're all playing on a level playing field and blah blah blah, and we need to do everything we can to fight Donald Trump, and then this money is going to be used to for volunteers on the ground and for the ground game and to get votes out, blah blah blah. It's like that. Nobody fucking believes that, bro. That's bullshit. That is not anything that's not going to convince us. That's not something that's truly going to fly with progressives. So if she thinks she's going to fool us with that shit, it's not going to work. And the fact that she's having conversations with Hillary Clinton and possibly is going to get endorsed by Hillary Clinton if she's running in the general, that means that she's capitulated, and we already know that she's capitulated, but that means she's capitulated to even more policies, and she's even more neoliberal, and she's even more centrist for Hillary Clinton. Otherwise, Hillary Clinton wouldn't have tried to endorse that candidate in this regard being Hillary Clinton. I'm saying in this regard being Elizabeth Warren. So if that candidate was more progressive, I guarantee she would be hesitant to back that person. Again, if she doesn't end up supporting Bernie Sanders, if he's the nominee, that's fine. You can stay out of the way, Hillary. Bernie Sanders does not want your support, does not want you talking on behalf of him and saying how much you want him to be president, because then we're going to have to worry about possibly Bernie Sanders, capitulating to demands of the establishment. And we can't deal with that. That's not something that we're going to put up with. So ultimately, Elizabeth Warren is somebody that we need to really watch out for. We have to keep an eye out for her. We have to keep our eyes peeled and make sure that she doesn't continue selling us a bunch of bullshit and then doing, the complete opposite of what she's promising. Because she's already doing that with taking the PAC money in the general election. She already put that out there. So she's admitting it. She's admitting we're going to take super PAC money in the general election if we're facing Trump. But in the primary, because I want to kiss the ass of progressives, I'm not going to do it. And I guarantee you that's something Hillary Clinton wants. I guarantee you that's what all the main party bosses, Tom Perez and all these people want too. So that's a problem. That's a serious problem. And she needs to stay away from Hillary Clinton as much as possible because she is influencing her big time. And I remember, I think I posted an article on my Facebook page a while back. I think this was before Elizabeth Warren declared, or maybe even right after she declared, but whatever it was, she apparently hired one of Hillary Clinton's old press secretaries or communications directors or something. One of the spokespeople essentially for Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren hired her onto her campaign. I mean, that's a problem. That's a fucking red flag. And this was way back in 2018, or late 2018, but all the way back in 2018. And knowing that she's talking to Hillary and knowing that she wants to take PAC money in the general, I mean, it's just there's more and more evidence of Elizabeth Warren not being trustworthy. And we need to be very, very worried about that. And we need to make sure that Bernie Sanders is the nominee and nobody gets fooled by Elizabeth Warren's games. Because at the end of the day, this is for the sake of our country and for the sake of beating Donald Trump. And Bernie Sanders is the best person to beat Donald Trump, hands down.